So, history of cybersecurity. The history, so we start with the cybersecurity history, which starts from early 60s. Well, when there was a mainframe computers like the MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab, which became the first staging ground for the hackers. And during that time, the hacker was a positive term. So basically, a hacker at that particular duration means someone who has a high skill in the computing things, or in the electronics, in the computer world, and they can do some skillful job. By 1970s, hackers started tampering with the phones, which was the largest network back then. In 1972, John Draper finds that the whistle that comes with the a cap and crunch syrup produced at that particular time, it sounds at the frequency of 2600 hertz, or you can say 2.6 kilohertz, and that was the same frequency which was used by the AT&T, one of the communication provider over there, telecom communication provider over there in USA, which authorized long distance calls. And at that time, the phone freaking started. The Steve Jobs, who is Steve Jobs and Wozniak, who were the founders of Apple, started the first business of the blue box at that time. In 1973, Bob Metcalfe wrote RFC 602, and it sounds like he wrote, "The stockings were hung by the chimney with care." The ARPA computer network, which was used at that particular time, was susceptible to the security violations. Many people still use passwords which are easy to guess, like the first name, the initials, the host name, which is spelled backwards, a string of characters which are easy to type in sequence. By 1980s, the things started evolving, and in 1980-81, the first two hacker groups were formed. One of them was in US called as Legion of Doom, and the another was called as Chaos Computer Club. In 1982, this term cyberspace was coined in the novel Burning Crow. In 1983, the movie War Games introduced hackers to the public. So during 1983, the public first started knowing what a hacker was. Before that, it was a kind of a geek term, and not too many common public knew about it. In 1986, the German hackers penetrated the Lawrence Berkeley laboratory system, and the objective was to try and opt in the secrets which can be sold to KGB, the Russian spy agency, which was active till 1991. Well, Cliff Stahl, a sysadmin at LBL, found an intruder while investing a 75-cent accounting discrepancy for CPU time. He decided to monitor the intruder in order to find out who he or she was and how he was able to gain the privileged access. The investigation ends with the arrest of Marcus Hess in Germany, who apparently worked for the Eastern Bloc. And this whole story you can read, which has been published in the book called The Cuckoo's Egg. The history in late 80s and 90s. Well, by late 80s, by 1988, the internet was hit by a big worm, which was developed by Robert T. Morris. Okay, so it was a mistake in the replication procedure which led to the unexpected proliferation. The internet had to be turned off at that particular amount of time. The damages were estimated in order of several $100,000, which was too much during 1988. The CERT team was formed, and that was the first time the CERT team was formed, and even now we have those teams. Well, now we have a lot of new emerged formed team. So the CERT was Computer Emergency Response Team. In 1994, we have heard about the famous Kevin Mitnick. So Kevin Mitnick attacks the supercomputer center in San Diego using a TCP spoofing attack, and he was later arrested in 1995 and then sentenced for prison for up to 46 months. Well, going back to starting again from 90s. So in 1990, the Operation Sun Devil happened. Well, the Secret Service arrests hacker in 14 US cities for the credit card theft and telephone and wire fraud. In 1992, the release of the movie Sneakers, which talks about the hackers. The first DEF CON conference was held in Las Vegas in 1993. So basically, DEF CON is an annual meetup for hackers, which stands for Defense Conference. It's a kind of a holy grail for all the hackers who would like to go and attend at once in their lifetime. There are a couple of other hacking conferences like this. You can go to Black Hat as well, but I would definitely recommend that if you are into security, at least try to go to DEF CON. It usually happens in the month of August. In 1995, a Russian hacker siphoned $10 million from Citibank and transfers the money to banks around the world. In 1995, the movie Hackers was released. In 1999, the Melissa worm causes large problems to the email system. Now we evolved into a new century, 2000. So 2000 brought up new computing technologies. At the same time, it also brought new havocs from the hackers as well. So in 2000, I Love You, a VBA script worm, infects millions of computers within few hours of its release. In 2002, Bill Gates announced the Trustworthy Computing Initiative. It was a new direction in Microsoft's software development strategy, which aimed particularly in increasing the security in its proprietary softwares. In 2003, the SQL Slammer worm infected 75,000 machines, 90% of the possible targets in 10 minutes. It started the fear for the flash worms. In 2005 to 2010, the worms are slowly replaced by botnets. In 2010, the Stuxnet attacked the centrifuge systems in nuclear facilities in Iran. It was completely new and unexpected, and the level of sophistication was too high that that a lot of people assume that it's either a state-sponsored, or maybe it was done in order to start a kind of a cyber war, or maybe a nuclear war as well. Who knows? In 2013, the Snowden revelations came into existence, and the entire threat model which we saw before 2013, it changed completely. Now we are facing an extremely powerful adversary, like the big brothers who are highly funded, and you never know that those 0 days attacks and the persuasive network surveillance and the injection, those kind of things are working each and every day. In 2016, IoT botnet make huge DDoS attack with hundreds of thousands of compromised devices like the IP cameras, home routers, So whatever the cameras that you see in the public places, or most of them were actually compromised, and those the cameras and everything were actually used in order to perform the DDoS attacks to various systems. So that's all for 2000. And after that, the level of sophistication, the attacks actually started a lot. A lot of allegations, like Amazon founder Jeff Bezos phone getting hacked by the prince of Saudi Arabia, and a lot of more attacks, the Sony attack and iPhone attacks, and a lot of attacks are there. So we cannot go into details of each and every one, but we'll see throughout the course on couple of attacks that can be performed and how those attacks are being performed. And obviously we'll see the countermeasures as well on how we can perform and stop these attacks basically from happening. So that's all for this video. Let's move on to the next video of the course.